Medienstimmreich präsentiert die Keynote zum Think Tank EduPotLuck im Gespräch zu zukunftsrelevanten Kompetenzen. Eine Produktion der Medienstimmreich GmbH mit den ISTE-zertifizierten Bildungsenthusiastinnen Verena Zimmer und Eva Maria Brigitta Kaiser. Medienstimmreich presents the keynotes to the Think Tank EduPotLuck, a dialogue about future skills, with the ISTE certified education enthusiasts Verena Zimmer and Eva Maria Brigitta Kaiser.
I'd like to thank you very much for allowing me on this platform to share with you the philosophy of Ubuntu as it pertains to collaboration and relationship. These aspects are becoming quickly a focus in terms of problem solving in the new age, as we look at ways of learning how to come together to find solutions for the issues that we are currently faced with in the world today. So thank you very much for allowing me to share this knowledge with you in this respect. I'd like to begin by introducing the concept of Ubuntu as a philosophy for collaboration and relationship by just stating that Ubuntu serves as an African worldview, and this worldview is one that encompasses the metaphysical aspects of existence, so the causal relationship of things. It encompasses the political, the medicinal, and the ecological aspect of our existence, so the harmony of bioorganisms. It's an all-encompassing worldview, an all-encompassing African worldview. And Ubuntu is the existential understanding that the personhood of an individual is recognized in community. Ubuntu states that the soul of a human being needs to be connected to community in order for it to experience or enjoy his or her own existence. Outside of community, that soul becomes lost without a sense of belonging or identity. And I hope that gives us an idea of what Ubuntu is as we get into a deeper understanding or a deeper discussion of Ubuntu, continuing on with the idea of how we will collaborate, or an idea of how to collaborate and relate in view of the philosophy of Ubuntu. Now, in Ubuntu, there are three main maxims, three main proverbs that construct or hold the philosophy of Ubuntu. The first states that moto ke moto ka batho. The second one states feta kgomo o tshware motho. And the last one states kgosi ke kgosi ka batho. As we go into the first one, moto ke moto ka batho, which has a Zulu equivalent translation of umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, which means in English, a person's humanity is validated in community. Now, what this states to say is very much what we discussed earlier in the presentation, that Ubuntu is the existential understanding of personhood, that a person's identification or state of humanity or validity of existence is validated in their connection to their community. Outside of community, that soul becomes lost without a sense of belonging or a platform in which they may manifest their humanity. The second proverb is feta kgomo o tshware motho, and this translates quite loosely to in a point of decision where you have to choose between saving a cow or a bull. Save the human being. In African culture, a bull or a cow is a symbol of wealth or a type of currency for money. This proverb of Ubuntu emphasizes that in the order of priorities, the value of human life comes before the security of wealth. And the last proverb of Ubuntu, or the maxim of Ubuntu, is kgosi ke kgosi ka batho. This translates to a king is a king for the purpose of the people. And what this means is that in Ubuntu, power and authority in the context of community are for the sole purpose of serving to the will and the needs of the people. Now, when we view relationship through the philosophy of Ubuntu, what we see according to the first proverb is that there is a fundamental change in how we view interactions with other people or a community. Ubuntu holds that an individual should primarily desire to engage deeply with others because their own humanity depends on it. Contrary to Ubuntu is the idea of self-ambition, which elevates the desire of the self above the connection to the community. And what we see happening there is that the self-ambitious individual becomes too detached from community, or begins to detach from a community rather. According to Ubuntu, that individual begins to lose their humanity because they miss out on the opportunities that community gives them to manifest or to act out their humanity. And the more self-ambitious individual detaches from community, the more they lose their ability to be humane. And this makes it harder for the self-ambitious individual to prioritize a human life over amassing wealth or money, which speaks to the second maxim or proverb of the philosophy of Ubuntu. Because Ubuntu says we must prioritize a human life over the amassing of wealth. Why? Because this will govern the mutual agreement of relationship conduct between people. The agreement is that a human life is worth more than any profit that can be made. Therefore, when there is this understanding, then the dignity of all persons within a relationship or within relationship inside community will be respected. And that is what the second proverb of Ubuntu drives home, essentially. In the last proverb of Ubuntu, Khosike Khosika Batho, this proverb speaks to the use of power, resources, and authority to be put to work to serve the people. The intent of this proverb is to restore balance within communities of hierarchy. This balance allows for relationship and communities to remain harmonious and community-focused when power and authority and resources as well are not used to benefit the people. The integrity, or rather the value of the community, is undermined. Without community, individuals become self-serving, and that becomes a threat to their own humanity. And as we look in retrospect to what we've discussed now about Ubuntu and its correlation or its view on collaboration and relationship, we start to see these points being highlighted, that Ubuntu is contrary to self-ambition, because self-ambition removes the individual from the individual's ability to contribute or be part of community. And that is a fundamental undercutting of Ubuntu, because it directly opposes the view that Ubuntu proposes, such that an individual's humanity rests in or is so intricately related to their contribution or relation to a community. And so self-ambition directly opposes that. And so that's something we'll need to look at when we discuss collaboration and relationships. We need to discuss that commonality of understanding that when we come into collaboration, are we being self-ambitious in our idea to collaborate? Because that will fundamentally undercut or subdue the understanding that we come together in a community to help one another and to recognize each other's humanity and to give each other that opportunity to exercise our humanity. We also see that self-ambition is opposed to the building of community, because self-ambition is self-focused, whereas Ubuntu says that for the individual to benefit or to grow or to become recognized in their identity, they need to be connected to the community. So they need to be so involved in the community in such a way that their involvement in the community is what brings about their validation of humanity. And so there is that really beautiful, intricate, and deep relationship between the individual and the community, which self-ambition really challenges. And we need to be aware of that when we collaborate and we are in relation or in points of relation with one another. We need to guard against self-ambition. That's what Ubuntu is helping us to see, that self-ambition is contrary to the building of community. So really looking into that with quite a lot of attention. we also see that Ubuntu says each person finds their humanity in community. We discussed this earlier. And one of the things about Ubuntu, or the philosophy of Ubuntu, that it highlights is that in community, an individual has a platform to manifest their humanity. And what we see in our lives as well is, or what becomes self-evident, is that we're only able to manifest attributes that are intrinsic to the human soul, such as kindness, compassion, critical thinking. These aspects are mostly often only exposed or experienced or expressed through a community setting, whereas compassion, peace, kindness, critical thinking are not so able to be expressed in a context of a natural environment with trees, grass, and soil, but rather that they're able to be clearly manifested in community. And that's what community brings out. That's what the philosophy of Ubuntu drives home, that community is so important to the life of an individual, because that is where they're able to manifest their humanity. And so says Ubuntu, that each person finds their humanity in community.
Medienstimmreich präsentiert die Keynotes zum Think Tank EduPotLuck im Gespräch zu zukunftsrelevanten Kompetenzen. Eine Produktion der Medienstimmreich GmbH mit den ISTE-zertifizierten Bildungsenthusiastinnen Verena Zimmer und Eva Maria Brigitta Kaiser. Medienstimmreich presents the Keynotes to the Think Tank EduPotLuck, a dialogue about future skills, with the ISTE certified education enthusiasts Verena Zimmer and Eva Maria Brigitta Kaiser.